Hey guys, this is Jan for Chess24. I'm back from my hiatus over the weekend where I played in the German Bundesliga, and I'm gonna keep covering the FIDE World Cup. We had the last 16 facing each other in tiebreaks, and the dramatic tiebreak of the day was the one between arguably the two biggest stars of Chinese chess, Ding Liren, the Chinese number one, and Wei Yi, the 16-year-old prodigy. And that's the match I'm going to be talking about in this video. Here we see the two players, even though admittedly we don't see very much of them. Ding Liren in red and Wei Yi in blue, photo from the official World Cup website. So let's jump straight into the action. In the two classical games, the players had traded blows. Ding Liren won the first one with white, then Wei Yi struck back, winning his game with white, leading to a 1-1 tie and to this tiebreak, where the players first face each other in two 25-minute games with 10 seconds added per move. And in the first game, Wei Yi has the white pieces. He goes e4 as he tends to, e5. Ding Liren looking for a classical opening against his very dangerous young opponent, and that's what he gets. The players play a topical line of the Ruy Lopez, which we had just seen in, for example, Svidler against Topalov, and Topalov against Svidler as well. Ding Liren showed up well prepared, goes for knight a5, c5, and bishop e6, which is a fashionable line at the moment. Accepting these double pawns, which I'm always skeptical about, but in return, black gains a compact pawn chain and a bit of a space advantage, grip on the center. Very unclear, complicated position. Both guys seem to know what they're doing. Ding Liren accepts these weak pawns, and the crisis of the game is reached quite early here after the move a4. Wei Yi, the 16-year-old, provokes Ding Liren to play b4, gain some space, which is what happens. And after knight b1, he's hoping that he can redeploy his knight to d2 c4 or d2 b3 when he would have an advantage because of the weakened light squares that white can make use of and the weak e5 pawn. But Ding Liren shows he's in the top 10 of the world for a reason. Strikes immediately with a very dynamic move c4 before white is ready to mobilize. And after c4, it turns out that black has full compensation for whatever pawn white takes. White takes on e5, after knight takes, bishop takes. He could consider c3, locking this knight out of the game, or c takes d3, followed by targeting this pawn on d3. Both fine, so Wei Yi had nothing better than taking on c4, leaving his own pawns crippled, and after after queen takes d1, rook takes d1, and knight takes e4, black is at least fine, even though he has all these weaknesses as well. The white lack in development is quite significant. Rook e1, attacking this knight. And here, maybe Ding Liren missed a chance to push for an advantage by going knight g5. That's a computer move. And the computer says after takes, bishop takes e5, rook a d8, black is better in spite of being a pawn down, because white finds it very hard to mobilize his forces on the queen side. The alternative would be to go knight bd2 now, but then there's knight takes f3, and the clever move rook f4, attacking this pawn from the side, and once again white is struggling to maintain the balance. Instead, knight d6 was played, and after this the game petered out quite quickly. Both sides have weaknesses, they were traded for each other. At the moment white is even a pawn up, but it's insignificant because of this very weak queen side that Wei Yi still has. So this rook ending, no one can really win, and a couple moves later the players shook hands and it was a draw in the first game, which is good news for Ding Liren because so far the white player with the white pieces had dominated this match, and now was his turn to play with white. Let's see how that went. Ding Liren goes for 1c4, quite flexible in the opening, and it looks like he made a conscious effort to take his young opponent, who's a very good theoretician, very well prepared, out of his main lines. In the classical game, Ding Liren had played knight f3, d5 with a very sharp fight, but this time around he goes for a more quiet, symmetrical English position, and here he plays a sideline with e3 and knight g2. It's not considered to be very dangerous. e6, this is one of the main replies, preparing d5 for black. Here white tends to choose between d4 or short castles, which leads to more or less equal positions as well. But Ding Liren had prepared the move b3, which is a novelty in this position, never been seen before. Which looks a little dodgy. Black occupies the center and white goes for bishop a3, attacking this pawn. Wei Yi reacts directly with queen a5, attacking the bishop and covering the pawn, and knight to a4, insisting on attacking this guy but putting a lot of pieces on the rim. In this position, Wei Yi went for knight bd7. There's alternatives here. Knight a6 is probably fine, knight e4 is a move, and so on and so forth, but nothing wrong with knight bd7. Castles, and he played the very aggressive move a6, planning to go b5, pick up one of these pieces on the queen side. Ding Liren decided to go for huge complications here. He plays d4, that allows the move b5, but of course he had seen that coming, and after b5 he takes on c5, bishop takes c5, which essentially trades his two pieces on the queen side for a rook and a pawn, and we get a very complicated position. B takes a, b4, clever intermediate move, pushing the queen back. We get this position. White has a rook and a pawn, has his passed pawn here, is hoping to pick up the a4 pawn and then get his queenside rolling, while black will try to open the position maybe with e5 to make use of his extra minor piece. Or extra two minor pieces. The rook is not really a minor piece. But Wei Yi, plays very confidently. First stabilizes the queenside here, defends the pawn on a4. And then a move I really like, the move g5, creating a square for the knight on g6 to prepare e5, and also anticipating white's idea of going f4, trying to keep the position closed. And here after g5, f4, gf, ef, there's a new target on d4. And the position is maybe slightly better for white, but both sides have their trumps. Ding Liren goes rook f2, preparing some play with f5 or g4, f5. The position keeps becoming sharper here after g4. Wei Yi looking for activity as he tends to, goes knight e4, sacrifice a pawn to open his pieces up, take the d4 pawn, and after some more huge complications here, Ding Liren decided to return the pawn with d5, open the position even further, trying to exploit this pin on the d-file. Both players on top of things, the balance never got really disturbed. g5, another nice move, trying to make f6 and queen h5 work, switching to an attack on the black king. But black is just in time to defend, goes queen c7, attacking on e4. Ding Liren ignores that, sacrifices more material. He's now a full piece down, but he does have some pawns, so it's not really a full piece in fairness. And the black bishop is very restricted. Knight on d8 is passive. The black king is weak. So there's enough factors in white's favor. And as both sides had played extremely well in this 25-minute game, something happened that often happens after the huge complications. The game peters out into a draw because the black queen is so active that it can give perpetual check, and black could never do more than that because of the huge white threats. Sorry for rushing through these complications, but there's plenty more ahead, and this game was just a well-played game by both players. So after this perpetual, this is the final position, nothing much has changed. The match was tied again at 1-1, which means two more rapid games were to be played with even shorter time control. Now it's 10 minutes per player plus 10 seconds extra per move, and Wei Yi is back to the white pieces. Goes for his favorite 1e4, and this time he changes tunes, goes for an opening we don't see so often at top level, the bishop's game. It's quite a specialty of Wei Yi to play an opening that's not so well known, but to still be well prepared there, especially with white. He is very, very dangerous playing his sidelines and showing new ideas. Still, there is theory to this stuff as well. All of this is well known. c6, d5 is the principal reaction against bishop c4. And here, the fashionable move is the one Ding Liren plays bishop b4 check, planning to provoke c3 before returning with his bishop to d6. The point is, if you go bishop d6 immediately, then this white knight can go to c3 and put some pressure on the d5 pawn. So bishop b4 is trendy, and Wei Yi, of course, is ready for this. Goes bishop d2, not c3. Bishop takes d2 and queen takes d2. Another very dynamic idea, hinting at queen g5 or knight c3 in some lines. Also theory, I once studied this line and I came to the conclusion that black's best bet is to go queen d6, queen g5, knight bd7 with a very complicated game. But it looks like Ding Liren also knew this and came to a different conclusion. He went d takes e4, very normal move, knight takes e5 and castles. Now before the game peters out, white has to do something direct. He goes d takes e4, trying to open the position up, put some pressure here. Black has to play queen e7, counterattacking against these guys. Wei Yi, still following his preparation at least, he was playing quite quickly, went queen to f4. Which at first sight looks like a blunder, because black has knight to h5, and there is no way this queen can keep defending the knight on e5. So what white has to do instead is go for bishop takes f7 check, which was played. One point is that after rook f7, white would just exchange everything. Once again, we'd get a situation with a rook, and this time 2 pawns against 2 minor pieces. And I believe this slightly favors white as endgame. The rook and 2 pawns should be slightly stronger than the 2 pieces. Ding Liren didn't feel like going for this, and he went for king to h8, asking white the same question again. How do you intend to keep your queen and cover your knight on e5? And Wei Yi played a very spectacular move here. I think it was still part of his preparation, but I still liked it a lot. The move queen to g3. And turns out this queen should not be taken, because after knight g3, white has a cute little knight g6 check, hg, and h takes g3 check. And as you can check for yourself, it's mate within 2 moves. Nothing black can do about that. So he better not take that queen. And of course Ding Liren didn't. Instead he took on f7. And after knight f7, queen f7, we once again have a situation with the rook and 2 pawns versus 2 pieces. This time there's still queens on the board. And after queen d6, bishop e6, Wei Yi refuses to trade them. One thing about the Chinese super talent, he doesn't seem to like endgames that much, prefers to keep pieces on the board, and that's what he does in this game. But it backfires in a way, because rushing through some moves here, but the bottom line is Ding Liren manages to deploy his pieces very actively and create some counterplay before white can get his pawn majority rolling on the king side. Rook e6, queen b8, queen f6. Already hinting at ideas along this diagonal. And after knight a4, bishop e2, rook c1, b6, the knight returns. Nothing to do on a4 anymore. Bishop a6, rook cd1. Ding Liren does the right thing in my opinion, simplifies to draw here with a petite combinaison. He goes knight to c4. White has nothing better than taking this knight, queen takes c3, and taking the other knight with queen takes f4. Now he has a significant material advantage, but black gives a perpetual with queen b4 check, king a1, queen c3. Nothing you can do to escape the checks. So another draw, which means the players are tied at 1.5, 1.5, and it's once again Ding Liren's turn to try his luck with the white pieces. And without spoiling, we are in for the most dramatic game yet. Ding Liren repeats his opening from the first game, goes c4, and once again goes for his goofy b3, d5, bishop a3 idea. Queen a5, knight to a4. And Wei Yi, maybe slightly naively, repeats the line he had played in the first rapid game with knight bd7, which is a fine move, but maybe it was time to smell a rat and deviate here. Knight a6, for example, looks fine to me. Or also on the next move, knight bd7, castles. He repeats a6. Maybe he could have done something else here. One idea that looks quite good, for example, is d takes c, b takes c, and knight to b6, forcing white to exchange on b6, and after a takes b6, bishop b2, black can play b5, get rid of his double pawns, and I can't spot a single problem for him. The position is just equal, black is fine. Then said Wei Yi saw no reason not to repeat his previous play, goes a6 here. Some of you might remember in the first game, Ding Liren played the move d4 with a very complicated position, but he had prepared an improvement. I'm not sure if he consulted the computer during the break, or if he called someone who gave him some advice, or if he just thought, this move queen c1 looks strong, and it is strong indeed. It's defending the a3 bishop, putting pressure on the c5 pawn once again, and the big point is that now black's counterplay with b5 doesn't work because of knight takes c5. The bishop is defended, so white would just be better here. Say Wei Yi had to come up with a different reaction. He does not shy away from complications, goes knight to e4, but now the d4 thrust is much stronger for white than the move earlier, And here black seems to be in serious trouble. Once again, you can't really go b5 for a couple of reasons. One of them is knight takes c5 with the point of knight e takes c5, b4, followed by b takes c5 when white is better. But there are some alternatives as well. So Wei Yi had to, or did play the move b6, which is a clear indicator that something's gone wrong, because after b6 this queen is cut out from the game. Ding Liren played another strong move, bishop to b2, already threatening to take on e4 and go bishop c3, picking up the queen. For example, bishop b7, bishop takes, d takes e4, bishop c3, and Her Majesty is trapped on a5. So Wei Yi had to do something else. He played the only move, c takes d4, creating some space. C takes d5, nice little intermezzo, e takes d5, and here Ding Liren played the most solid, most obvious move, bishop takes d4. Could be that knight takes d4 is even stronger, threatening knight c6, almost winning the queen once again, and it looks like black would be in pretty serious trouble. But also after bishop takes d4, white is better. Black has an isolated pawn on d5. These bishops get exchanged, so the black king will be slightly exposed, and this position is just a pleasant, very risk-free edge for white. Knight c3, bishop b7, queen b2, threatening a discovered check along this diagonal, which of course has to be covered. The best way to cover it would be king g8 with normal position, normal advantage for white, but instead Wei Yi played the more obvious, more direct knight df6, which has one big flaw. After knight e4, d takes e4, this knight is pinned on this diagonal, and this could be a problem. I think we have some video of the situation around here. Let's check in with the players if I manage to do so. Here we got Ding Liren going knight e4, d takes e4, and taking very little time, playing rook fd1, which was not the best idea. Rook fd1 after a couple seconds. Instead, he could have played the not very hard to spot move, in my opinion, f3, just directly trying to open up this f-file to put pressure on the knight on f6 when it looks like white is winning. The problem is black can't really get rid of this pin, and after some obvious moves like this, for example, white would just pick up the knight on f6, rook a1, and there is no defense for black. There's some more complicated tries, but none of them really work. White in all the lines wins material because of this lethal pin. So that was one huge chance for Ding Liren to deliver a knockout blow. He didn't play rook fd1, but now black has solved some of his problems. He got rid of the isolated pawn. He will manage to get rid of the pin by playing queen b6 and then unpinning with king g8 if needed. And the position all of a sudden is close to equal. That remains the case. We see some more exchanges, and it looked like this game was headed for a draw after e takes d4. Now the position really is equal. But there was plenty of excitement still to come. Some maneuvering back and forth. Ding Liren decides to go knight d1 to maybe use his knight for a kingside attack. But that gives Wei Yi a chance to launch a counter attack against the a2 pawn. Wei Yi doesn't have to be asked twice to enter complications. Goes after that pawn. Now black is a pawn up. White is still alright. Here he could have gone for knight f5 check. G takes f, queen g5. An idea we'll see later in the game as well, forcing weakening of the black king with most likely a draw. Instead, Ding Liren keeps playing very riskily with queen to c7, maybe still playing for a win under the impression of his earlier good position. Bishop a8, queen b8. Here, Wei Yi could just have gone bishop c6, but he's not the type to defend passively. Instead, he offers a piece sacrifice. Queen a1 check, king h2, queen e1. And it is correct. After queen takes a8, queen takes f2. The white king is exposed and the queen is so far away from defense that, well, according to the computer position is equal after knight g4 or knight f1. But I'm not surprised that Ding Liren decided not to call his opponent on that one. Instead went queen f4 back, defending the f2 pawn. He's still active enough to hold the balance, and after queen c3 he now went for this simplifying combination with knight f5, gf, queen g5, king f8, queen takes f6. This queen is so active that there's some perpetuals threatened in combination with the d pawn. It should at least secure white equality, but I have the feeling that both sides were playing for a win here, and the situation remained extremely tense. We switch to the next key moment after h4, Wei Yi once again is looking for activity, once again ready to part with material here, goes for the move f4, not approved by the computer, but he's trying to create some space for his queen, which is quite important in almost a blitz game. Both players were very low on time at this point. F takes g3, the computer gives the reasonably obvious f takes g3 as best, but probably Ding Liren didn't want to put his bishop passively after queen f2 check bishop g2. So instead he went king takes g3. Turns out at the moment black does not have a single check and white has restored material equality. White should be absolutely fine here. Let's click through some good moves to reach the next critical moment. Here after h5, it turns out very soon that this pawn is gonna be weak, queen f4, and Ding Liren is willing to part with it to control some key squares. Goes queen d4. Wei Yi picks up the pawn. Now is a pawn up. White is still active enough to hold the balance. Computer says best is to do nothing, but Ding Liren plays a more obvious move, the move queen to f6, which I hope we also have video on. Hang on, this is still the old video. Let's see if I can bring it up. 1 second. Here we are. Come on, play video. Here we go. Queen takes h5, queen f6, and I believe that the next move by Wei Yi was missed by Ding Liren. We see on the clock both players with no time, 13 seconds for Wei Yi, but he does remain calm earlier. He had some situations where he was even down to 1 or 2 seconds, but never in danger of losing on time. It looks like very cool, calm, and collected. He found this very strong move, queen g5, covering the e7 and d8 squares sort of from behind with the queen, an easy move to miss. And now Ding Liren panicked. He could just have gone back to d4 when, according to the computer, the position is still equal. Practically, it looks like black has achieved a lot and can now play h5. But apparently after h5, let's say queen c5, the white initiative and his pawn on d6 is still good enough to secure equality. But instead, Ding Liren played the move queen to e7, offering a queen exchange in return for a passed pawn on e7. But it turns out that this passed pawn is fool's gold. It's gonna get picked up pretty much instantly by the black king, and this bishop endgame is winning for black. That's the end of the adventures. After very few more moves, black would pick up another pawn on b4, and that's all she wrote. f5, king takes b4, f6, bishop d5. Let's switch to our final video if we can bring it up. Here we go, bishop d5, and Ding Liren stops the clock, resigns. There we can see him. He's of course extremely frustrated because he lost the match to Wei Yi, the 16-year-old, with another comeback victory since he lost the first classical game. Proves to be very, very resilient and advances to the round of the last 8 quarterfinals, where he's gonna face our friend Peter Svidler. That's another reason I kept a close eye on that match, because it was determining Peter Svidler's next opponent. So that's an exciting match to look forward to. The prodigy against the former winner Peter Svidler, our very experienced colleague here at Chess24. We'll certainly keep an eye on that. Thank you guys for watching this video. Check out the World Cup commentary on chess24.com. I'll be doing commentary, but in my native German. However, there's plenty more languages to follow, which you can choose. See you there. If you like this video, share it, recommend it, tell a friend, sign up to Chess24, do the usual. And thank you guys for watching. See you soon. Bye-bye.